7 a.m. and Tuesday we're loading up the van right now to go and put in these 400 soil block Salanovas. So that is going to take, they're basically 150-foot bed each. So we've got 2 beds that we're going to prep, or that are already prepped, because we had 100% failure, well, like maybe 99% failure. The last crop of Salanova we planted in because it was so extremely hot. We've got beautiful weather today for transplanting. It's nice and cloudy, and also these plugs are a little bit smaller, so our kind of goal with these plugs today is to try planting so that they're small enough that they fit within the hole and the leaves don't touch the fabric, because when they do, if you get a flash of hot weather, they almost cook on the landscape fabric. So we're hoping that this is going to solve that problem. One concern is that because the plugs are smaller, the roots won't be as established, so the plugs might fall apart easier. That has yet to be seen. What I'm doing right now, before we head over there, and Mark's gonna head there ahead of me, I've got some things to get going here for our orders of the day. I'm going to just sharpen this stirrup hoe, and this sharpening tool is incredibly effective for doing that. When we're turning over crops and shanking out the base, like you saw yesterday in yesterday's video, I was doing it on a bed of arugula. It makes it a lot easier. It cuts through really quickly. So I'm just going to sharpen these up, get this tool to Mark before he takes off. I had some people comment on, actually a number of people thought this was a gnome. It's not, it's a piece of tuck tape, and that's not a gnome either. Just because he has a red hat doesn't mean he's a gnome. Okay, so we're tying them up now, eh, Raj?
Yeah, well, if you look at the sun goes on the other side.
Okay, let's take a look.
Next level up there.
Oh yeah.
See, once we twist there, then we're gonna have to come across this way.
Yeah.
Back at, well, you can see back in there, eh?
Yeah. Well, a bit of a slowdown today. A little less orders than we had last Tuesday, which is fine because we had a crazy week last week, and to not really be worried about hustling too much today is kind of a nice thing. We still do have orders. We have 2 different restaurants and 2 grocery stores to sell to, but one of our bigger restaurant customers who buys a lot of stuff, because of the weather, they had a little bit slower of a weekend, and so it's kind of funny when you're in a very seasonal market like ours. You can predict orders based on what you see the weather as, on what it's going to be and what it was. And we definitely had some not as nice weather last few days, so that has affected orders. And you know, commonly it's restaurants where there's a terrace or a patio. Those kind of restaurants in our kind of area, where we're so based on tourism in the summer, that you can predict slowdowns because of it. So anyways, right now, before I go out in the field, I'm going to just take stock of what's in the cooler that can go into our orders today. Christian's coming by to do some packing a little later in the morning, and I'm taking stock so that he can get that sorted out. Okay, I'm on my way over to one of our plots across the highway to check in on Mark and help him out a bit. It's going to be kind of a brief pop-in because I need to get back here to make sure everything is in order for packing when Christian arrives. So I'll just be kind of making a quick stop over here and helping him a bit, and then coming back quick. There's a bunch of work to do at this plot today, and it's been really well watered, so I'm going to turn the water off for a day. Even if we get a day of sun, I'm going to let it dry out a bit. The soil here is really heavy clay, so I'm going to do some weeding, and I'm only here for about 40 minutes, so because I got to be back to help pack. But Mark's transplanting the Salanova right now, and it's looking good. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of do a variety of tasks while I'm here. Weeding, I might do some harvesting of turnips if I can, and I might just harvest that bed of red Russian kale and take it back with me. Well, I came in and stirrup hoed most of the walkways. It didn't take too long, maybe 10 minutes. And The soil's really wet because we've had rain for the last few days, and then I didn't have the irrigation on, but I did turn it on after the last day of rain. It was probably unnecessary. So the soil's really wet, which is great for transplanting these, but it's not great for doing anything else. So we want to turn these 2 beds over. We gotta stirrup hoe them, but it's just too mucky that it's too much work. So we're gonna come back later in the day. Maybe it clears up, we get a bit of sunshine, and it dries out some of the soil. I'm also hoping that it dries out some of the crops because I've got 2 beds of arugula there that I can harvest, and I'd rather get those a little bit dry. Right now they're very wet, and so is that red Russian kale, so I'm gonna hold off on harvesting that stuff for now. I've got enough product to meet our orders for the day in the cooler now, so we're not hurting for it, and we'll do it when it's less effort. Okay guys, I want to show you what happens when your greens harvester blade isn't sharp enough, and I find that I have to change it every 3 weeks or at least once a month for the amount of greens we cut. So you'll notice that when I'm cutting, it's pushing some greens over, and I'll lay the camera down and show you what happens. So I find the hardest greens to cut are Scarlet Frills mustard or ruby streaks, or there's various names for it. But what happens is the greens, they start to lay down. So I'm still getting a cut. Like I've still got a little bit in here. Okay, so I'm getting something. But just look, I'm gonna put the camera up close and just look at how they're all leaning in the direction that I was moving. So this is how I know it's time to change the blade. So I'm going to do that immediately before I cut any more greens, otherwise I'm losing yield. It's just not worth it. So blade's going to get changed. I got 2 more fresh blades, and when I'm on to my 3rd one, I'll start sharpening the other 2, and that'll get us through the season. I prefer to always have some blades on draw that I can put on. I don't want to be in a bind and be rushing to get greens, and then I gotta stop everything to go and sharpen a blade. I'll do that like on a Sunday or a time when I have some time to kill, where it's just something I can do as a chore. Okay, so I'm just gonna swap out this blade, and there's a thing I've done on the greens harvester differently than the way the guys at Farmer's Friend send it. Is there's normally a pin inside of here, and I find that pin always falls out, so it's bloody annoying. So I have just put in a 7/16 machine nut, or bolt with a nut in there, and so that way it doesn't fall out. I put it in where it's loose enough that it can twist, but it's got one of those sealing nuts, so the nut and bolt stay in place. So I'll just put this one aside and I'll sharpen it probably later in the summer. I've got 2 more clean blades I can use, so this will go in the sharpened pile. I'm actually just gonna power wash the gunk out in here before I put the new blade in. So just as easy as it came out, it can go back in. Now that I've got that blade back on, watch how this cuts again. One thing I want to say first too is the way that the new greens harvester puts blades on opposed to the last one is way simpler. The 1.0 version had 2 blades on it, and the mechanism in which the blades were locked in there was a lot more complicated. On the newer version, it's just 1 blade, which is fine if you keep it sharp. The thing that I liked about the first version is that you could kind of get away with not changing the blades for almost twice as long, because there was, in a way, twice as less resistance on the blades because you had 2 blades doing the work. So there was, if you will, less contact on each blade because it was spread amongst 2. Whereas in this one, there's more contact on each blade, so I find I do burn through more blades. However, if you, like our farm, we're probably cutting about 100 pounds a week of greens that we'd use the harvest for. Most of our greens come from Salanova, which we don't use the greens harvester for. We're cutting by hand and knife. So if you're cutting through about 100 pounds a week with that thing, I find you got to change it at least once a month. Maybe even every 3 weeks is best. But anyways, I'll put the camera down and you can see how different it is with a brand new blade. Okay, I hope you guys can see this in this light, but look where I went. This time around, there's little to no leaning of the greens. It goes right over them with effortlessly. I don't have to feel like I'm pushing it. I can totally let the machine do all the work. And I find there's sort of a feeling you get in your hands where when it's cutting really well, you feel all the greens pushing into the back basket easily, effortlessly. But when it's not cutting very well, you almost feel like you have to really guide the harvester over the bed, or almost like kind of move it around to try to get more catch. When it's sharp, you don't have to do that. So that's the thing. If you're gonna cut a lot of greens and you want to save the effort and get a nice regrowth, then you got to change the blade. So look at here. That's all miscut stuff. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna take the harvester, I'm gonna go over that and just throw that scrap in the compost so that I get a nice regrowth. If I left these leaning over greens like that, they'll just wilt on top of each other and then I'll have a really crappy regrowth. I am just loading up for a quick delivery downtown, and then I'm going to go and join Mark in the field and finish up that work we were doing at that last plot. Okay, I'm just loading my bike up and heading back to that plot I was at earlier, and I just wanted to address one question because I sometimes check the YouTube comments during the middle of the day, and I see quite a few people asking about I mentioned that I hand water my beds on drip sometimes in the summer, and they're asking, well, how often do you water and do you want to keep it moist? Basically, if it's the height of the afternoon right now, it's about 2:30. If these look like this at 2:30, I'm not too worried about it. I'll give them a water when I get home. Maybe like around 4:30 or 5, I'll give them a hand water, and then they'll stay moist throughout the evening, and that will be good. I mean, ideally, if you had the time to sit there and give them a spray all day, sure, it would probably be better, but I'll still get good germination here. I mean, I'm doing it like sometimes twice a day, and it'll be fine. Back here, Mark's in the process of turning these two beds over. So besides him turning those over, we just have a lot of harvesting to do. Turnips, radishes, arugula, red Russian kale. So it's already 2:30. In fact, I think it's a little after. Yeah, it's 3:15. So Mark will probably take off around 4, meaning that I'll stick around and probably just finish the harvesting, and he'll probably be able to finish those beds before he takes off. So I'll just be kind of crushing the harvest. Here we go. Harvesting these turnips, and I've only harvested like maybe 6 feet so far, and I just wanted to show you guys how insane these yields are right now on this bed. I've been growing turnips for about 7 years. And in my book, I talk about there's 5 characteristics that make a crop really profitable, and like there could be others, So I refer to this as the CVR. It's a crop value rating, and most crops will score a 1 out of 5, a 5 out of 5, 3 out of 5, whatever it might be. And generally speaking, the more profitable crop, the higher the rating on the CVR you want to have. So those characteristics are, in no order of importance, popularity, which is actually probably the most important one, but then there's 4 others. So there's popularity, meaning you got to be able to sell it. There's high density per linear foot in bed. You've got a high price per pound. You've got a long seasonality. So how long in the season can you grow this crop? So turnips, I can grow like 10 months, almost 10 months of the season. And then the last one is days to maturity. So a crop that grows quickly. So like in my book, I explain it as anything that's 60 days or less would score on the CVR. You'd get that point there. So turnips essentially score 5 out of 5. But what I realized here is this is seriously the best crop for the zombie apocalypse, okay? So if everything were to go to hell in a handbasket tomorrow, you'd want a cabinet full of guns and a field full of turnips, okay? So, you know, this crop here is, you know, and I'm talking to all you preppers out there who already have a cabinet full of guns. You need a field full of turnips, because when you run out of ammunition, you got your backup ammunition here, right? You can make a potato gun, and in 21 days, you can be shooting these things like cannonballs. This weighs like almost a pound, 1 turnip. That's a 38-day crop, 2 pound, 1 pound ammunition. So there you go, turnips, best crop for the zombie apocalypse. Okay, so I hope you guys realize I'm kind of kidding there. I don't really, I'm not encouraging people to have a cabinet full of ammunition. I'm just having fun, but really, this is serious crop. So I've got 160 pounds of crop here, and we already harvested 40 out of that. So that 150-foot bed yielded 200 pounds of turnips that we sell at around $4 a pound, okay? So at $4 a pound, that's an $800 crop. One crop in one bed. I'm gonna have 2 more crops in that bed before the end of the season. And even if this was a worst case scenario, say I only got $1 a pound for that crop, it's still 200 bucks in a 38-day crop. So think about that. Okay, so my work here isn't done yet. I've got that bed of turnips out, and if I have enough time and if I feel like it, I'll turn that bed over. But we've got the 2 beds that we needed to turn over, because we're gonna get lettuce in them pretty soon, and one of them will go to radishes, which I might plant today while I'm here. But my priority right now is to harvest radish, because I've got a big order for radishes and turnips tomorrow. So I got the turnips. Now I need to get in here and harvest these radishes. We'll see how we're doing for time. It is getting kind of hot, pushing around 4 o'clock, and I got to pick my girlfriend up from the airport by around 6-ish, so I don't want to work too late, but I will if I have to, and that's probably her calling me right now. Okay, we are almost done for the day. Whew. A lot of work. We got that whole bed of French breakfast radishes, and I got another half bed of Easter egg. These ones are less yielding, and the reason for that is that Easter eggs kind of size up at different sizes more than the French breakfast, which pretty much, except in the colder season, for most of the season it just all is ready at once and you get very little radishes that aren't usable. So either way, I like to crop everything out because we're getting into, well, we are well into the main season, but I also need beds to plant more carrots soon, and so I need to make sure that I've got enough of these coming out. The nice thing about what happens in the summer is that as I need beds for longer season crops like carrots, my shorter season crops like radishes, I'm getting more rotation out of them because they're ready so much faster that it doesn't really interrupt. Like, I can basically incorporate longer season crops into my bed flow without it affecting my overall production, because the other quick crops are coming in at such high cycles so fast, they're in and out so quickly that you know, that I can have more of this stuff. And this is the reason that I only grow carrots in the main season now, is because it allows me to have you know, a really good summer crop, but it doesn't compromise my bed real estate early in the season. The key thing to managing multiple sites is that you're getting a lot of different tasks done at each of those sites whenever you go there. Granted, there are going to be some times where you have to go to a plot just to get one thing done and get out because you're in a rush. But if you've got a lot of things to harvest at one plot and you're willing to spend a chunk of the day there, you're better off just doing a bunch of stuff. So as you can see today, we've cropped out, well, I mean, I still got to cut that arugula. So 1, 2, I did the bed of turnips, the bed of arugula, I'll do the other bed of arugula, so 3 beds, 4 beds with the red Russian, 5 and 6 with the other radishes. So we've cropped out 6 beds, but we've also planted 2 other beds, the Salanova, that was the first thing Mark did this morning, and we've prepped 2 other beds. So one of those I'm going to plant right away before I leave. That's going to be planted to radish. But you know, you get the idea. You want to get as many things done as you can at each site, because otherwise you spend too much time in transit. And that's what really caused me to burn out in my first couple years, is that I wasn't really planning and thinking ahead of what had to be done at the plots. I was just kind of showing up and just giving her, and which was good in a way because it taught me how to work harder, but it did burn me out. And so I'm better off just getting everything done here that I need for the week, and then I don't have to come back. And part of that relates to the fact that I harvest things when they're ready, not necessarily when it's the perfect time to cut them for market, because a lot of this arugula I'm cutting right now is going to be sold Friday. But you know what? If you cut it at the right time when it's dry and the temperature is cool, you can get a lot more shelf life out of it. So I'm willing to have that than wait till Friday or Thursday to harvest it, which might compromise my workflow. Okay, now just 2 more things to do. Plant this bed of radish real quick, harvest that bed of arugula real quick. Okay, you guys will notice that I did 2 varieties in that one bed. I did 4 rows of Easter egg and 3 rows of French breakfast, and that's just because I'm reducing the amount of radishes I plant each week, but it's not necessarily meaning that I'm reducing my volume, because I'm getting such tighter intervals that I'm almost still getting the same production. Okay, so anyways, now that I've planted this bed, I've covered it, I've put my hoops on it, and now I'm just going to cover it up with fabric so I don't have to worry about the root maggot. So I'm just rolling it off. I just rolled it up when I pulled it off the last bed, and then I've clipped it at the end, and now I'm just kind of pulling it across this way. Just grabbed a couple roll bags from the side, and I'm just gonna put one here and here. Now, last task. Crop out this arugula, and then I'm out of here. This is why arugula is still good even if it goes to seed really quickly, because you pretty much make your money on the first cut. There's already a full tote. That's about 1/3 of the bed. That's probably 18 pounds. So I will get around 50 pounds from this one bed, one cut. That's not bad. Okay, 3 totes of arugula. Those are at least 15 pounds each, so at least 45 pounds off that bed. Like I said, even if that's a first cut, Still very economical. All right, we crushed that plot. Done, everything planted, moved fabrics around, harvested everything I need for the entire week from here. At the very end, I took some fabrics that I'm gonna need at another plot, and that's the day.